This is a little bit dangerous because I might be very tempted to get one of these next season. All right. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. As you guys can see today, I'm on the Rebel 1100. Super stoked to be doing this. So what happened is a friend of mine bought this Rebel 1100 and he happens to be a subscriber of the channel, and he was like, hey, do you want to give the Rebel 1100 a test and compare it to your 500? I'm like, sure, like 100%. So I'm really grateful that he lent this over to me today. He's in the front riding my 500. In terms of rider dimensions, we're quite a bit different, so we had to make a little bit of adjustment. So the bike feels pretty big on me, just like with how things are seated and the preload, all of that stuff, but that's okay. I'm just here to do this first ride and give you guys a taste of how it compares to my 500, which I've been riding pretty much all summer. So as we're doing this warm-up here in the neighborhood, the first thing that I notice is overall it feels very familiar to the 500. It's just everything's a tiny bit bigger. So I think an analogy that I would make is going from the CBR 250 to the 500. I found that it was extremely familiar, but every little piece of the bike was just bigger, and then obviously the more power. So that's how I'm feeling right now. The first thing with that is this display. That's the first thing that I noticed. Having this extended piece over here with some indicators. Looks like we've got cruise control as well. Even though mine's is the 2020 500, it has that upgraded display, but this one having a tachometer is like really nice. Oh, sorry guys. I'm still just getting used to the throttle. The throttle is quite a bit twitchier. My friend Mark also added some wraps, as you can see here. Look really nice. But my hands are quite small. As you know, I wear a size small Alpine Stars glove. But the power is just a lot of fun. I'm really excited to start opening this bike up. We'll also check in with Mark afterwards to see how he thinks of going from the 1100 to my 500. We're likely just going to be sticking in standard mode. There is a sport mode and there also is a rain mode, which kind of bogs the bike down. The downshifts are a little bit more sensitive. Similarly to my 500, it does have a slipper clutch. Overall, this is just such a smooth bike to be on. One of my favorite things so far already is the sound of this 1100 parallel twin, same as the Africa twin. Yeah, it just sounds really nice, even though we've got the stock exhaust on here. This is all I would really need, honestly. I do feel this way about the Bonneville from Triumph. Just that larger engine on a stock exhaust sounds already so nice to me. As you guys know from the channel, like I'm not really keen on super loud and obnoxious exhaust, but I do like a bit of a more bassier, throaty sound. I'll also be chatting about if this bike is an appropriate beginner bike as we start wrapping up today. Yeah, oh man, sorry guys. The rev matching I'm gonna have to get used to. First gear isn't too jerky, and you can certainly take off on a rolling stop in first, but because of how much torque there is, second gear is gonna be my sweet spot. Holy probably didn't see me from that other lane position. At the same time, the power, while it's here, it's extremely manageable if you have the discipline and riding experience. I really do think you can start on this as a beginner. If you're able to start on something like an MT-07, I would consider this bike not too far off from that. As I was saying about the power, it's certainly there, but with that being said, this bike can take turns so easily. It's so light relative to the power. It feels a lot lighter than my Ducati Scrambler 800. The flickability is very similar to that 500.
Like, I took that bump, I was just like, oh shit, I barely felt it.
I know they had upgraded the suspension for 2020.
I mean, I do feel a lot closer to the ground, but I feel it's such a more nimbler bike than mine.
Relative to the power, I feel like this bike takes corners really nicely too. The downshifts I had to get used to a bit.
I was like, oh, I watch his videos. He like really ramps it up when he like rev matches. I was like, oh, I'm gonna try that. And then I was like, I don't want to fuck up his bike.
It's got a slipper clutch too, so you can to do whatever you'd like. It's a small bike and it's forgiving, so like totally rip it, man. He's a fan of the Yoshi exhaust on the Rebel. This is a good opportunity to test some of those low speed maneuvers here in this parking lot. So I'm just feathering the clutch, which has a little bit more tension than mine. Yeah, the rear brake is really nice as well. And I'm, again, only about 135 pounds this summer, 5'6", around there. Still feeling really comfortable since this does only have a 27.5 inch seat height. So for smaller riders who are looking to go up in size, Honda made this really nice bridge that you can go from the 500 to the 1100. I know that Honda used to make that Honda Shadow 750 and my dad had a couple of those. But this 1100, I'm so surprised at how comfortable it feels going from the 500 to the 1100. And I mean, to be fair, I have ridden a handful of motorcycles of all sorts of different displacement, but this is really approachable as a beginner. As long as, I would say, if you did a riding course. Oh, I like that you can just sit in first gear in those turns. You don't have to worry about shifting to second right away like I do with the 500 or even on the Grom. Oh man, the power and the sound is just, I can't really describe it. It feels like the first time I was riding that Ducati Scrambler, honestly. The ergonomics is so comfortable on here. It's still incredibly linear and smooth. Wow, this is a little bit dangerous because I might be very tempted to get one of these next season. Although I do love my Rebel 500 so much, I'll of course be doing a updated review pretty soon here. After riding this, I'll really be curious to see what the Sportster 1200 is like. Same with that Indian Scout, but you know how much I love Hondas on this channel, and I'm so glad that Honda stepped into this. Yeah, this thing, I'm so surprised how much you can flick it. It feels so light because the center of gravity, it feels almost as flickable as the 500. I never thought I would say that, but I'm really surprised here. Oh, you know what? Let's see if it has... Okay, the right foot feels way more comfortable than my Rebel 500. My Rebel 500 has the weirdest right foot placement because your ankle and your heel are kind of hitting this part of the engine. But this is really, really nice and comfortable how much room you have here. So it looks like the tank is right about full, maybe a little bit less, and the range is just hovering around 200 kilometers, so that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit less than my Rebel 500, but these arrows are toggling the sport mode. That's cruise control on the right hand side here. Man, this is so smooth and so fun to ride, and I feel like I'm not even accessing like the full potential of its power, maybe only 50 to 60% so far. As you know, my Rebel 500, 80 to 90% of the riding is done in the city, and that's all we've done so far, and it feels so comfortable. I never thought I would want to have an 1100, anything over 1000 really, for the city. Fourth gear in the city, yeah. I might be in fifth gear if I was on the 500. He even said that he felt that first bump that he hit felt a little bit more comfortable on the 500 than it would have on the 1100. Oh, okay, there's a bump there. Compared to other cruisers that I've ridden, I've liked that this is a lot more of a standard riding position. You know, my feet aren't in front of my wrists or anything like that. On the 500, honestly, I feel like I'm reaching the handlebars sometimes. I do like that there's a thermometer. It reminds me of my MT-07. Gear indicator, tachometer, clock. Really everything that you need is on here. This bike does come in an available DCT model, which at first, when I read that on paper, I was like, there's no way I would want to buy a motorcycle that's automatic. But when I think about it a little bit more, as a filmer, it would be kind of cool that you can just ride with one hand, not worry about shifting gears, pulling in the clutch, as I very poorly downshifted there. You know, in the city as well, the DCT might be really nice, but I will say if you're a beginner and you're getting this as a first bike, I would encourage learners to still learn on a manual. It's a really fun way to learn, and it's also obviously a really good skill, but I think that manual motorcycles are still the way to really enjoy and understand your bike. But until I get my hands on a DCT for a first ride, I guess I can't really comment too much on that. With this larger windscreen, it's really nice as well compared to my little Dart fly screen over there. I don't really feel wind hitting my head too much. So something that Mark was mentioning is it's the typical problem when it comes to buying new bikes that like just come out, because the aftermarket options are going to be really limited for it. Some parts he was able to find, but he has a Two Brothers exhaust he said that he ordered. And then the sissy bar on here, the backrest with the rack, is actually meant for the 500. He was able to modify it a bit to make it work. With the Rebel 500, you have a lot more aftermarket options because it's been around for so much longer. Okay, we're hopping onto the highway here, so really excited to open this thing up. And at the same time, I hope that Mark isn't too disappointed on my 500 because of how little it is. This thing loves to lean, and I never thought that I would say that about a cruiser. But it's like very, very happy, and I know I'm not leaning it over a ton right now. But it feels really, really nice. Holy, this thing handles the highway with zero issues. 4th gear. Not even 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. Give me a chance to test the brakes, which, oh, they feel a little bit spongy, to be honest. I honestly feel like the front brake on my 500 has a little bit more bite to it. Holy, this thing has a lot of power. Holy crap. Okay, that thing I said about being a beginner bike, I kind of take that back. I think you need a ton of discipline. But at least you should be pretty confident on a lower CC bike before jumping to something like this. It's pretty windy today, but the bike feels very planted here on the highway. If you're buying this bike for really long highway rides, the department it might suffer in is the comfort. I personally like neutral riding positions. Holy I'm getting like blown around like crazy. The bike is doing fine, but the wind hitting me is just crazy. Oh, if I duck under this windscreen, I feel really nice. Oh, I could test out the cruise control here. Let's see. Okay. Right hand is off. That is so weird. I've never used cruise control on a motorcycle, but it's just like a car. And I think I could go up. Oh yeah, it's just up and down. Well, this is really cool. Oh, okay, and then this cruise control takes over the thermometer. But yeah, the flickability of this bike, definitely no sacrifices with the power and the weight. I feel like these are a little bit more street-oriented tires. While the 500 obviously has street-oriented tires as well, I feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable on gravel roads on the 500 because of the tread. Man, this bike is a ton of fun though. But in conclusion, do I like it more than my 500? Honest answer, I would probably need a little bit more time to figure that out. And I feel like I would really appreciate it more if I was a highway rider, which I only am like 10% of the time. And this seat is really comfortable. This is, I think, the special edition seat, and it grips really nicely. You're not sliding around, and with the detail on it, I think that's part of what makes it feel so grippy. Holy this thing has power. You almost feel like it handles like, you know, a low CC bike because of its weight, but then the power is just there waiting for you if you ever need it. And that's what makes this bike really awesome. So what'd you think?
She's a nimble bike. She's very capable on the highway. There's still a lot of pull. I mean, specifically if you're like a lighter rider, like handling on the residential and some of the main roads, she's quite nimble.
Yeah.
As I was riding, I was like reminiscing a lot about my CBR 250.
Yeah.
It's the kind of bike that probably won't get you in trouble. Yeah, it's fun, very capable.